Hey guys, Kamina the coach coming here again. So I've been putting this video off because it makes me uncomfortable. But having encountered it too many times here recently, I understand that the universe wants me to do this video, probably because it makes me uncomfortable. So here we go. Um, So for those of you who don't know, my name is Kamina the coach. I have been living and working abroad since 2010, 2011-ish. I am currently in my ninth different country. I am an education professional. I've worked in a lot of different education fields while living and working abroad. COVID forced me back into, so most of the content on this channel originally was related to living abroad and getting it together to work and live abroad. COVID forced me back into the United States in March of 2020, where I was forced to reckon with really deep childhood trauma and adoption trauma. So I kind of refocused the channel and didn't think that I would ever have the opportunity to leave the country again. Surprise! September of 2020, I was lucky enough to escape the United States again, Mexico first, and now I am in Baghdad, Iraq. So this video is really going to be more about trauma work, and I'm watching an ant contemplating if I should just let it live. If you are not new to my channel, you know that a lot of that I've done a lot of trauma work, and one of the big areas where I say and admit openly that I still need to do work is with racial trauma. I am really thankful that the universe has led me to Resmaa Menakem and his most recent book, My Grandmother's Hands. And before you run out and go get the book, I need to warn you that this is not a book that you just run through. It's more like a workbook, and it's so if you don't know much about trauma, I suggest that you get The Body Keeps the Score by Peter Levine, I think, discussing how trauma is stored in the body and how trauma is really a feeling. Somatic, soma meaning body, a real feeling in your body. So Resmaa's work is about acknowledging and feeling the stored trauma in your body and slowly releasing that. So this book is aimed at Black, bodies of culture. That's what he calls us non-white bodies, and he calls white bodies and blue bodies in the United States. We have a shared trauma that others don't. Not to say there's not any trauma between other groups of people, but we have a very unique triad of trauma that connects us inextricably. Is that a word? He warns in a lot of his videos, if you check out any of his videos on YouTube, he warns that we're talking about centuries of trauma, and it will take generations to heal this trauma. And if we don't reckon with it, we are headed for destruction. And these are our only options: to begin to reckon with the trauma, or to self-destruct. I'm talking about this now because there's two reasons. I deal with a lot of microaggressions on a daily basis because I make white people feel comfortable. So I make especially white men feel comfortable saying ridiculous nonsense to me. And in the moment, my body protects me by not allowing me to feel the rage. And then afterwards, I feel it, and then I'm mad because I couldn't address it in the moment. And usually what happens is so in a moment of anger, usually we fight, freeze, or fawn. And usually I fawn in those moments and I don't really know what's going on until afterwards. And then I'm mad because I've fawned, and it's a vicious cycle. So that has triggered me into making this video, as well as I'm in a group for Black folks in Thailand, and I saw a man who is with a Thai woman, as I talked about in my last video, that as Black men often do, choose the other, who very obviously is in that self-hating place of trauma. I also ran across another brother who liked my post in a dating group, and he was kind of berating Black people for our trauma. So something really ingenious that I've always said but not ever said it as eloquently as Resmaa does is that trauma presented long enough in a person is mistaken as personality. Trauma in a community presented over a long enough period of time is mistaken as culture. And so the United States and these communities at large mistake the trauma in our society as culture. And we have perpetuated this hate and this trauma on each other so long. Parents wanting their children to marry up, meaning they want them to marry someone and have children with someone lighter, and categorizing and speaking poorly of those of us with dark skin. And I love that Resmaa talks about his grandmother was guilty of this, but his mother never allowed it. I've got to get this bug. Sorry. It was going to make me crazy. I wasn't going to be able to get through this. So sorry, bug. Send your energy back to whence it came. So Resmaa talks about his grandmother was guilty of this. How could she not have been, coming from an age of picking cotton? She used to talk about, poorly about his very dark-skinned Black friends, and his mother would shame her and, Mama, we're not going to talk like that about us. But we have this shared trauma that has been handed down inside of us, which has caused a degree of self-hate inside of us that can only be dealt with by learning how to release this trauma in our bodies. So I don't approach these two brothers with anger, but with compassion and deep empathy for the pain and the trauma that they're not even aware of. And there's nothing I can do for them other than to deal with my own stored trauma. And let me just say that though I have the book, I am moving very slowly through it. It's hard, I will not lie. I've had a lot of bad dreams. It has made me very uncomfortable. And it's a lot to stomach, even for somebody who's done a lot of trauma work. The other side of this story is understanding and compassion is not a pass for bad behavior. Let me say that. However, understanding and having empathy is part of being human. I have been guilty of wondering if white people, especially American white people, are aliens because of the degree of barbarism that they have been capable of over the years. But if you look further back at their history, pre-police, because police is a new invention, the way that they punished crime was heinous and barbaric. Do you not remember? Well, let's go back to the Romans, white people feeding people to lions and stuff for entertainment. The English, just the people that were fleeing to the colonies, they would stretch people, their limbs, stretch people until they pulled them apart, where you could hear ligaments and bones breaking. Watching people be hung and beheaded in the square. So they have been subjected to this barbarism for centuries before they came to the United States and started inflicting this stuff on us. So poor white people were so much more like Black people coming over as indentured servants that the rich, the elite, were in danger of the poor white people becoming aligned, or the Black people, the Black slaves, the bodies of culture, finding allies in other poor people with no property, that they created this notion of the white body being superior to give these poor white people something, to give them something, and to keep them on their side. And that was the construct where race was constructed. And they've effectively done that so much over the years, and lots of people have alluded to it. Dave Chappelle, as much as has said it, poor white people have more in common with the Black community than they would ever be willing to say. So just understanding where all this stuff came from, and understanding that that is almost also trauma that is encoded in their DNA and handed down to them as well. It's hard to swallow, but it is true. Also a degree of